I'm super happy today to have Tania Kaaz, which I've followed the work. I really like the work.
Thank
Quite
you.
alternative through her website and her Instagram account, and the publication Alter Analog, which has had for a quite long time now. So you're an experimental photographer. You say also a progressive film photographer,
Right.
and yeah, and I'm directly going to go towards the main question of this podcast: is why did you choose to do photography, and how important is it in your life?
I've been shooting film for over 30 years. I first discovered photography when I was in high school, and that was before digital photography existed. So the only alternative was film photography. We had a great darkroom in my high school, and I always did art before that. I really got into art when I got sick as a young adolescent. I got a type of disease that was under the muscular dystrophy umbrella. So I wasn't able to run around with the other kids. I wasn't able to play outside. I was at home all day. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have cable. We didn't have any of those things. We didn't have streaming services. So I just did a lot of art, to fill my hours of the day. And so once I got to high school, I was doing better with my health, but I wasn't completely cured yet of the disease I had. So once I got into photography, it was really a way to not only find an outlet for my creativity that didn't require me to have a lot of, it wasn't something that I had to be physically strong to do, but also it helped that I went through the world at a slower pace, because I think with photography, you do have to slow down to find the details and to capture them, especially if you're shooting film, because you have so few frames to get what you want, So weirdly enough, my disease, which left me partially paralyzed at the time, helped me to go through the world at a very slow pace. And I was able to find those little things that I could capture on film.
It
So,
was some kind of yeah, it was some kind of way for you to explore other kind of universes or kind of other dimensions in your life.
well, it was almost like, when you're a teenager, all the kids are, going through the world fast like a rabbit, like jumping, jumping, jumping. And I was like this little snail going so slow through the world, but I was able to see all these beautiful things that maybe other people missed. And then I was able to capture that on film. So I found something very magical about that, and about the process of then going into the darkroom and putting a blank piece of paper in the developer and seeing your image come out. It was like magic to me the first
Mm.
time that I did that.
This analog process you discovered at that age. So you were
Mm-hmm.
obviously doing black and white and
Yes.
playing with the magic of light. Uh, how did it actually end up developing for you to be such an important part in your life today?
Well, when I went to college, I was still studying photography, and I had this professor who was he just told us to play with our film, not to be precious with our film, but to throw things on it, burn it, tear it up, scratch it. So we just started playing with it and doing things like that. We were making these big installations with our, photos on. I did a lot of work with glass and light, and that was amazing. That was so fun, just not to be so precious with your film, uh, and just to play with it. Just have fun with it, make it something enjoyable. And so that really changed my thinking of film. And then everything became digital. And in my college, there was one computer with Photoshop in it. This was in the mid 90s. And there were some kids with a lot of money who had Photoshop on their computers at home, but I didn't have a lot of money. So I would have to use the college's computer if I wanted to use Photoshop. And I would only be able to have it for 15 minutes at a time. And so the kids that, had money and had Photoshop at home, they were making these perfect, photos, and they were being graded the same as I was on my photos that I was creating in the dark room. And I always had a different enlarger every time because we didn't have, enough enlargers to go around, which that little light difference, makes a difference
Yeah,
on your
totally.
print.
Yeah.
If you're going from a different enlarger every time, I wasn't getting the same like perfection that, the kids who had Photoshop were getting. And I just got really frustrated with the way photography was going with the digital aspect of it. I got upset that this beautiful chemical process was getting transformed into just ones and zeros on a computer,
Yeah,
and I
losing the
felt like it lost
concreteness.
its, yeah, I just felt like it was losing its soul. So I just stopped doing it for like 20 years and
Oh,
then
no way.
discovered it again in 2016.
Okay, because I'll put the links on the description below to your work, to also Ultra Analog, obviously. If you go on your website, we see that you have actually quite some black and white works, which is kind of more traditional,
Right.
stylistically speaking, and then you have the colorful matter transformation and poetic side of things. Um, so when you came back to it, what was the element that sort of pushed you to, because you were talking about the price of digital photography originally, it ended up
Right.
being the opposite. Now it's actually pretty
Right.
expensive to do the
So
chemistry.
the way I got back to film photography, it was kind of strange. I've always liked music, and I followed this Australian punk rock band called Violent Soho, and the bass player Luke Henry is a film photographer. And so I was just following them because I loved their music and it had nothing to do with photography. But he was posting some film photos, and I was like, oh, I didn't know people still did film. So I thought I'd reach out to him and ask him, did he have a dark room? I was curious about this, and he got back to me. And he said, no, I use a dark bag. And I'd never heard of that. So I said, well, how does this work? And he explained it to me and encouraged me to start taking film photos. And I had an old camera, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. My son was a little older. He was in school and I had some time. And I started taking it and fell in love with the process again. And so when I was doing the black and whites, somebody started following me that soaked their film in wine. And they were actually getting wine tones. They weren't getting all the crazy colors. They were just getting wine tones. And I thought, this is cool. I'm going to try that. But I saw that a lot of labs won't accept your film if you've soaked your film because it'll contaminate their equipment. So I learned how to color process on my own at home. And then I started experimenting with soaking my film in different substances. And I found that if I added heat to the substance, then I got those crazy surreal effects to my film.
Mm. It's funny because you're talking about the soaking process. So obviously I'm kind of biased in our dialogue because I followed your work, which I really find interesting, for a long time. So I feel like I know a little bit what you do, but now that you're telling me also the story, the background story of your discovery of photography, do you think the soaking is kind of also a metaphor of how you transcript feelings of life into the images you create or into your art form?
I like to see the world differently than how I see it through my eyes. I like to I can see the world through my eyes all the time. So I like to look at it in a different way than what I normally see it as. So I think that's what I'm trying to create when I make these images, is like a wonder, a world of wonderment.
but a world of wonderment where you still stick to this real world feeling of doing the chemical process with no ones and zeros.
Yes.
Yeah. And how did you get to the idea of ultra analog, actually trying to not publicize but to promote this approach to experimental photography?
Well, it's I was going to do a zine with a friend of mine, just our work, and I said, well, why don't I make a magazine? And then and I said I can have other people's work in it. And then so we did that. He helped me with the first issue, and then it's gone through a few different people working on it, and then now it's just me working on it. It's my project at this point. Because it's a lot of work for people to continue working on it. So I've just taken it on myself. But I just love to show other photographers' work to the world. I want to just add wonderment and beauty to the world. And so I can do that. But I just think it's a beautiful community, people from all over the world doing this amazing work and just helping one another learn different techniques and bringing everybody together. And it's not for profit. It's not for fame or anything. It's just connecting people together and doing something fun.
Yeah, it's interesting also what you say here. I think in the other dialogues we've had in the past weeks, also in the French version of those dialogues, I think one of the highly motivating thing is the link to other people, is using photography to find some kind of community of thought, or of how do you say, of creating pictures to share and find other souls that will go along with you and try to get along, simply discovering other stories. When you were talking about photography originally, when you were younger, you were talking about going into that process. Do you remember that time? Is it a way for you to remember your history going into experimental photography? Do you do it and remember some nice moments in your lifetime? Is it
I think every time I do it is like the first time.
Okay.
Every time I pull the film out from the reel and I see images, it's like the first time. It's just magic every time. It's creation from nothing.
I think it's on your website. You're saying it's for you, it makes you more mindful of your surroundings when you're taking the pictures, or
no? Well, yeah, I definitely am more mindful of my surroundings when I'm taking the picture, because especially with film, you only have, again, like at most 36 tries to get it right. So you have to be very mindful of what you're shooting. It's not like you're just click, and you have hundreds of tries, and then the one that looks good is just an accident. You have to be very mindful. So yeah, it's almost meditative. And then I just think art in general, like when you're creating something from nothing, it's almost, this is going to sound crazy, but it's almost like religious in a way. I think it's almost like the closest a human's going to get to being like God, creating something from nothing, and something that's going to last. I mean, when wars end, empires fall, but we still have the Parthenon. We still have these beautiful statues. We still have works of art from the Renaissance. We still have Egyptian works of art. We still, like, art is what exists. It's what makes us human when everything else falls. So just the creation of art, I think, is so vital and important.
So yeah, basically the spiritual side of things for you is one of the most important. I was looking at your Instagram feed, the photos you post. So how do you choose your subjects when you take the pictures? Because apart from the colorful process that you put your pictures through, how do you choose your subjects, and is the composition important for you? Are you trying to tell stories too, or how do you see the underlying picture under the textures?
I think I just sometimes I try to like mix the substance that I'm soaking in with the subject that I'm taking a picture of. Like for the botanicals I did a few years back, I was wanting to use a botanical based substance with the botanical photos. So I used lemon juice. And then I took pictures of gardens that might have had fruits in them and different flowers. So that was like kind of mixing, something similar. And then for the ones of downtown, I knew what the substance would do, like what effect I wanted. So I knew it would be like very vibrant. And then it was alcohol, was like tequila and Merlot, and downtown there's a lot of like drinking and bars. So I kind of mixed those two together. So I've experimented with enough things to kind of match the substances with the subject matter.
Mm. Because
Like
it's kind of, yeah.
there was a series I did on my mental health struggles, and so I'm doing this with my head, and it's on a holga, and I soak those in rubbing alcohol because it's more of a medical type of substance.
Mm. Yeah, because it's kind of your work is kind of mesmerizing, I must say.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
it feels as much spiritual as very concrete. Often the subjects, the photographed subjects are very concrete. I really push people to go see more in detail the works you have. Um, I'm wondering because when you actually, for me, it feels like you tell stories, that you're actually telling me a story. And um, how do you actually have series that tell something in particular, or we're talking about your own mental state, or are you trying to tell a story, or are you trying to resolve a story, or try to go beyond something?
I do have themes to some of my work. Sometimes, like I did the mental health series. I did also a series where I soaked my film. I soaked it in lab made blood because I didn't know where to get real blood from, that had to do with like violence.
Mhm.
And so some things are very intentional. Some things I just do because I think they would look cool. And that's my only reason, is just art for art's sake. Um, and some things I just think would be fun, a fun idea, a creative idea. So it's more like a pop art aesthetic, I guess. Like,
Hmm.
oh, this would look cool. And, there's no really thought behind it. I do have some more religious images, like a lot of Virgin Mary images. I was raised Catholic, so
Hmm.
um, I love that imagery. It's especially her, I guess, being a
Yeah.
mom with a son just speaks to me. So
Yeah. So
I
you're
soak her
based.
in
Yeah.
Merlot a lot because it's
Mm.
very symbolic of the church.
Yeah, yeah. I've read somewhere in your descriptions or captions that you were a fan of Witkin. Um, do
Joel Peter
you?
Wicked,
Yeah.
yeah, his work is so dark, and I don't like the darkness of the work, but I do like how, he did a lot of scratching of the negatives and things like that. And I love how he lights his work. I wouldn't want his work up in my living room or
Hmm.
anything, but I do like the experimental nature of his work, and I think he's been hugely influential.
Okay, because I was wondering, because just following what you said before, uh, the darkness he shows, actually your work is lighter. I feel like it's more like it opens up to the sky. It's kind of more lots of
Right.
light, lots of colors. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Who else? I mean, who else do you take as inspiration, or do you just improvise?
A
Whitkins
lot
is
of
important. Yeah.
a lot of photographers that I know personally,
Hmm.
via Instagram, and I take inspiration from their work, and then just you know Weston was one of the first photographers that I learned about, just the way he lights things. Like he makes vegetables look so beautiful. Just
Hmm.
that like just to have that perfect black and white photo, especially at that time where there was no digital manipulation, I just think takes such immense amounts of talent. Irving Penn, he was
Hmm.
amazing. And some of Helmut Newton's work was like really subversive, but never demeaning. So I really like those photographers. My work is nothing like that, but I love their work.
Yeah. How do you see actually your work in your life right now? I mean, in the present, it's do you see it as a continuation of your own state of mind, or are you using it as a way to escape to some lighter environments?
That's a good question. Well, right now I do a lot of photography with my son. He's 13, and he actually learned how to use a manual camera, my Pentax, when he was 5. So we've been shooting film since he's 5. So we go on a lot of adventures together. So a lot of it's very lighthearted and fun. at this point. And we just come up with these crazy ideas to do together. So we'll
So
just
it's
let's go
really
to
a
the
way.
cemetery, take pictures. What should I soak it in? And he'll give me an idea. So right now it's just more whimsical and fun.
So it's really a way for you to connect with other people, close
Yeah,
or less close ones. Yeah.
right.
We're slowly getting to the 15 minutes format of the dialogue, which I could go on forever and listen to what you do in photography. I really like what you do. But do you have currently? Do you have um, something going on, like an exhibition or a project? Is Alter Analog going somewhere else now, or are you continuing? Or do you
I
have
need to think
something?
about what to do with that. I need to get the fourth print issue out of with Ultra Analog. I've been busy helping with the show for Denver's biannual month of photography, so that's going to be coming up. March 11th is the opening, so I'll be doing that. My son's also in that show. And then I also have a couple other things going on with a zine that I'm in. So I have an opening for that the night before.
Will you be actually there presenting something, or will you be present?
I'll be there on the 11th for the opening. And then, I'll swing by the gallery now and again. Thank
Again,
you.
we're gonna have some more in the future, so I hope to get you back very soon.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.